podcast, Canadian Trade Strategy for Africa, with Mr. Alexis Leclerc, CEO of Leclerc Consulting. Hello, Mr. Leclerc.
Hello.
Can you tell us about Canada's trade strategy for Africa?
Yes, the opportunity for Canada and Africa is enormous. To date, discussion of trade diversification have often focused on the Asia-Pacific region, given the well-documented rise of the Asian middle class. If this region is to remain a priority, Africa deserves attention, given its significant and underestimated growth potential. It will simply not be possible to achieve Canada trade diversification objective without a strategy for Africa. For the past several years, Canada has made trade diversification a key priority. In his 2018 Fall Economic Statement, the federal government committed to making Canada a more globally connected economy by increasing overseas export by 50% by 2025. The opportunity of Canada in Africa is enormous. Economic analysis commissioned by the Business Council of Canada suggests that if Canada seized the opportunities in Africa, our export to the region could reach $6.6 billion in 2030, representing a growth potential of about $4.1 billion over the coming decade. While growth varies across the continent, Africa is home to 6 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world. This does not mean that the picture is entirely pink. In fact, 3 of Africa's largest economies, South Africa, Nigeria, and Angola, are experiencing severe and unique economic challenges that are holding back continental growth. Despite these challenges, the continent continues to grow at a rate of 3.6%. Not only is this rate faster than the global average, but many economists expect Africa's growth to accelerate in the coming years. Africa's relatively young and rapidly growing population is expected to help support and sustain growth for the foreseeable future. This contrasts with many parts of the advanced and developing world that are experiencing or will experience an aging population and shrinking workforce. Africa's working age population is expected to increase from 700 million today to 1 billion by 2030. Over the same period, the total population will increase from 1.2 billion to 1.7 billion. As the population grows, so too will the number of middle-class Africans. By 2030, 212 million sub-Saharan Africans will be part of the middle class, an 80% increase from 2015. The McKinsey Global Institute projects that household consumption will grow from 1.4 trillion in 2015 to 2 trillion in 2025. While much of this total consumption will come from the wealthiest household, 50,000 annual income, many Africans will become emerging consumers or global consumers, earning between $5,000 to $50,000 per year. These consumers are able to spend beyond their basic needs. For this development to be possible, it is expected that more Africans will move to cities where there are more productive and better paying jobs. Nearly 200 million new urban residents are expected by 2025. At that time, Africa is expected to be the fastest urbanizing region in the world, and by 2045 it will have a larger urban population than China or India. The rate and extent of urbanization would be transformative and could make African consumers more connected to the global market. Furthermore, if successfully implemented, the recent ratification of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement has the potential to boost intra-African trade and facilitate exporters' access to the African market. This can only be achieved with a significant new investment in region infrastructure, the establishment of common external tariff, deeper economic harmonization, and the entry into a formal cross-border trade of thousands of African businesses that would become potential partners for international suppliers of production inputs and business services. A study by Curiac Consulting on Canada's trade performance with Africa reveals that although African growth has accelerated significantly, Canada is falling behind other competitors in the market. Steady growth over the past 2 decades has allowed the economy of sub-Saharan Africa to approach 4.8 trillion in purchasing power parity terms. If the Maghrebian economies of North Africa are added, this figure rises to $7.5 trillion. This growth has caught the attention of the world's largest economy. For example, the European Union has negotiated economic partnership agreements with African countries. China is heavily investing in the region through its Belt and Road Initiative. The United States has the Prosper Africa project, which is a reaction to the expansion of China's relationship with Africa. And in October 2019, Russia organized a summit with African leaders in Sochi.
And so what would you recommend for improving Canada's relations with Africa?
Well, Canada should continue to build and strengthen its relationship with the African continent, taking into particular consideration that Canada has earned a high level of trust in many African countries. What is missing is a coordinated approach with stakeholders to develop and execute a common economic and development strategy. Also, Canada has played an important role in providing technical assistance to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Given this history and its expertise in trade negotiation, Canada must continue to provide technical support to help the African Continental Free Trade Agreement reach its full potential. This has the added benefit of putting Canada first in line to negotiate a trade deal with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement if a custom union is achieved. Canadian businesses and political leaders must establish a consistent high-level visits and engagement to develop a serious Africa strategy, and also must develop a long-term plan for Africa and commit to the market for at least a decade. For Canada to play an important role in Africa development, coordinated action by the Canadian government and the Canadian industrial cluster is essential.
We are now coming to the end of our interview. Do you have a word of conclusion?
Yes. Canada needs a comprehensive strategy for Africa. The opportunities in Africa are simply too great to ignore. Greater commercial engagement would not be enough on its own. Coordinated action by government and business would be needed if Canada is to play a greater role in Africa development. For all African economies, Canada's export to the region could reach $5.3 billion USD in 2025. And this is based with the study from Korea Consulting. This represents a growth potential of approximately 2.8 billion USD over the next half decade. For African economies combined, Canada's export to the region could reach 6.6 billion in 2030. This is a growth potential of about 4.1 billion over the next half decade. By neglecting its economic relationship with Africa, Canada is missing an important opportunity to expand its trade with one of the most promising emerging markets in the world. The combination of strong economic growth and expanding trade in the region due to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, new trade infrastructure, and the rapid spread of e-commerce is creating major and significant opportunities for Canadian businesses.
Thank you for your time today. Could you remind us how to find you on social networks?
You can find us on the Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram platforms, and on our website, www.leclercconsultinggroup.com. And I remind you that the experts of Leclerc Consulting Group are available at all times to accompany you or advise you on your project and your organizational strategy. Thank you.